I was watching last night as I got ready for bed. By the way, how did I celebrate my 43rd birthday? I had Chick-fil-A, going with the standard Chick-fil-A sandwich, the one with the pickles on it. Nothing fancy. I'm not a spicy chicken guy. I'm not a nuggets guy. Just give me the standard, basic Chick-fil-A sandwich. Don't interfere with the classic. A lot of times go with the red, which is an extra large fry. So you have a little bit of a more fry base there. That was my birthday meal. And then I had a nice little birthday cake supplement, and it was an awesome time. All three boys had Chick-fil-A with me. My mom and dad came over. Great time. And as I was getting ready for bed, it was a little bit after midnight on the East Coast, 11:30 or so here in Central Time Zone where I live, and somebody tweeted out the video of Jim Rome getting attacked by Jim Everett. And I can't believe it has been 28 years since that happened, and I had no idea that happened on my 15th birthday. So when I was 15 years old, back in 1994, Jim Rome, who is still doing daily sports talk radio, and one day I would come out and totally eclipse Jim Rome in terms of audience, which would have been crazy to think about if you had told me when I was 15 years old, hey, this guy, Jim Rome, who's on ESPN, super famous, one day you're going to have a radio show that's also nationwide in the world of sports, and it's going to be wider distributed and more listened to than Jim Rome. I would have told you you were crazy if you'd ever told me that. But Jim Rome gets attacked by Jim Everett, and it's an amazing live television moment. And I saw Ron Harper, who was on the second Bulls championship dynasty, won 5 championships, Ron Harper did. Ron Harper, I actually would love to talk about this with Ron Harper. Ron Harper said, I was scheduled to be on as the next guest. If you haven't watched that video, you should go to my Twitter feed, at Clay Travis. You can watch that video. I guarantee you'll be entertained by it. But can you imagine being the next guest? I want to know way more about that day of programming when Jim Rome got attacked by Chris Everett. Chris Everett, by the way, Jim Everett. He was calling him Chris Everett to make fun of him and say basically he was a wimp because Chris Everett was a great tennis player. And so I wonder on some level, did they continue with the show? Did they pretend nothing happened? Did the show go to normal, program? What happens when someone is attacked on the air? Now, we just had the Will Smith slap of Chris Rock happen, which I would imagine 28 years from now, I hope I'm still alive, by the way. I'd be 70, I guess, when that happens. I hope I'm still alive at 70 years old. There'll probably be people sharing that clip of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock and talking about where they were and everything else. But I wonder when the next time that we'll have a confrontation like that might occur. And I'll give you a story. The closest, sometimes people say, hey, Clay, you're outspoken. Have you ever had a guest type situation where you thought to yourself, oh, this could really turn into the Jim Everett and Jim Rome situation, where somebody is a guest and they actually want to attack you, like where there's physical anger? For the most part, I've never really experienced that because I always say exactly what I think and people can agree or disagree with it. But one year, it was New Orleans. We were at the Super Bowl for the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl. And we were broadcasting. I used to do a local radio show called 3HL, for those of you familiar with that. We were on, I don't remember if we were in drive time yet or if we were on in the middle part of the day, but initially we were on 12 to 3, and then later we were on 3 to 6. And then I left there to go do mornings at Fox Sports Radio and beyond. But we were doing local radio. And we had on Warren Sapp as our guest. It was me, Blaine Bishop, and Brent Doherty, the 3HL crew, the initial 3HL crew. Blaine and Brent are still on 104.5 The Zone here in Nashville. And so we were interviewing Warren Sapp, and there was a big discussion, some of you may remember this, about deer antler spray and whether it was a prohibited substance or not. This was a big story surrounding the Super Bowl. And Ray Lewis, whether he was using it or not. I don't know if anyone still uses deer antler spray or not, but this was a big discussion at the time. And We're talking about deer antler spray. And Warren Sapp says Ray Lewis, he doesn't believe he ever used an improper substance, a banned substance. And then Warren Sapp says, as evidence of why he believes that, and I'm paraphrasing here, and we need to, maybe the audio is out of this interview because I'd like to share it. I think you guys would enjoy it. Warren Sapp says, he's talking to the three of us, he says, I don't know that there's ever been anybody who has questioned Ray Lewis when it comes to telling the truth. And, you know, it's kind of registered there in my head, and there's a pause for a moment, and then I say, well, you know, Ray Lewis was charged with double murder and lying about it to the police, which I would say is pretty decent evidence that somebody might have ever questioned Ray Lewis and whether or not he told the truth. And we're at one of those like folding tables, if you've ever been in Radio Row before. There's a folding table basically there. And Warren Sapp, big defensive tackle Warren Sapp, who made a living just wrecking people on the offensive line, is on one side of the table, and I'm on the other side of the table. And there is a long pause right after I say that to Warren Sapp. Long pause. And later we talked about it on the air and also off the air, and both of my co-hosts said they really thought that Warren Sapp was going to come across the table and just attack me. And people who were listening to it live on radio, I got to tell you, it's very rare that you have a very prolonged period of silence on live radio. So something like 5 or 6 seconds where nobody is saying anything. And then Warren Sapp, you know, decides not to kill me and comes back on and says, well, basically, did you bring a gun to a knife fight? And it's an amazing audio, right? It's amazing live radio. I hope that I can share that clip with you. That's the closest I've ever felt like, oh, somebody might attack me on live radio or live television.